All right, we're back here on Sportsline. Don't forget Sportsline streaming live on the News Channel 5 Plus Facebook page, so you can go check us out there. As always, you can send in comments from there. Like us as well if you want. Joel Wilson asked a question on the News Channel 5 Plus Facebook page asking about Jeff Fisher as a possibility for Tennessee. I just don't see that happening, Joel, because it's been so long since Jeff Fisher's had anything to do with the college game. I think you have to have a guy who can come in there and recruit right away, help you get out of some of the holes, offensive line, some of those sort of things. And I just think asking a guy who hasn't been a part of the college game in that long is a real issue. Frankly, I thought it was an issue for John Gruden. If they would have hit the home run that some people wanted to get John Gruden, same question for him. How does John Gruden, who's such an X's and O's guy and a scouting guy and a film guy and all that, a tireless worker when he was a coach, how's he going to like going out on the road and recruiting high school kids, 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, and trying to get them to commit to his program to help him win? I just think that's a stretch. I think that's part of the reason he didn't want the job, because he didn't want to do it. So I think that's always the risk when you go to the NFL guys to try to bring them back. Sounds like Arizona State's interviewing Herm Edwards right now. Herm Edwards been out of the NFL game for a decade. You know, what kind of a fit will that be in the desert? A guy who hasn't coached any level of football for a decade, but hasn't been in the college game forever. Now you just want him to walk in and start recruiting kids and coach them up and win football games? I mean, I just think there's more to it than that. There's a huge rule book, and you got to get out there on the trail and have your coaches out there and assemble a staff of college coaches. That's difficult for some of those guys. All right, to the phone lines we go. 737-7767 is the number, and we begin tonight with Ronnie. Ronnie, thanks for the call.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Doing well.
Well, this is my biggest issue right here with John Curry. Everybody in the country realized when he tried to hire that fool last week that was a dumb hire. Everybody realized it but John Curry. So the guy that we pay boatloads of money to go out and find us a coach doesn't realize that that's a dumb hire. We have a problem.
Well,
Director should have been Blackburn from the get-go. We all know that. That should have been your AD.
I actually kind of agree with that. I love David Blackburn. I've heard great things about him as well. I know certain people wanted him to be the AD. You never know how that would have played itself out, but I certainly think Curry was deaf to the fan base when he started this. But here's the thing. If Mike Gundy gets on a plane in the next 24 hours and comes –
preach it, brother. I know what you're saying. You're right.
You know, I mean, he ultimately gets the right guy. I don't know how much of him it was or how much of that would be another booster stepping in or what it is. But if he ultimately gets Gundy, I mean, it's still his hire. He's still going to be the one who'd be introducing him in a couple days or whatever it would be. I think that would save a lot of face with the fan base.
Well, I agree with that. And I think we taught him a lesson Sunday. You don't mess with this fan base.
You definitely don't mess with the Tennessee fan base. That is for sure. Ronnie, thanks so much for the call. And it'll be interesting. It will be interesting to see what the relationship between John Curry and Big Orange Nation is after this. I mean, 24 hours ago, his reputation and stability at Tennessee was rock bottom. Now, if he gets Gundy, it certainly takes an uptick there and comes back a little bit. But as he ultimately looks at this place and his constituents, the fans, and the people he works with, can he stay? Can he stay at Tennessee the way this played out? I don't know. And we'll obviously find out. It has a lot to do with who they ultimately introduce as a head coach and how people view him after that. But right now, it's hard to see that as anything but an untenable situation long-term for John Curry at Tennessee. Back to the phones we go. Hello, Brian. You're next up here on Sportsline.
Hey, Wisconsin should be number one. You remember a few weeks ago when they were 9-0, you said that if they won out, and they did 12-0, that they'd be in the playoffs. And I think that one of the reasons the Badgers aren't being ranked number one is because they're not running up scores on teams. I mean, you just beat Minnesota 31-0.
Sure.
Now I went to Illinois, and back when they in the Big Ten, what was called the Big Ten, they had sort of an unwritten rule, sort of a gentleman's agreement by the coaches. They didn't blow out the weaker teams. Now, I remember Florida State, and Florida used to do it all the time, run them up 70, and even some of the SEC teams. That way, when the computer does the thing, it shows the scores. You know, there's always been an unwritten rule in the Big Ten. I don't know if it's still current in the Big 12. They tend not to. I know when they win the game, they're always playing hard, but I don't know how to describe this. There's never been a tradition in the Big Ten of teams blowing out, you know, purposely blowing out, running up scores.
Yep, there is some truth to that, but I will also say the biggest thing for Tennessee, by the way, we got a little breaking news coming in here. Just a moment ago, Mike Gundy tweeted out Cowboy for life, hashtag Go Pokes, hashtag Oak State. So I assume that probably means he's not going to Tennessee based off of that. So once again, Tennessee now looks in a different direction if Mike Gundy indeed is staying at Oklahoma State, which he tweeted that, so you would assume that is the case. But to your question or point, Brian, Wisconsin, look, they're fourth in the country right now, which is actually a little bit higher than I expected because I wasn't expecting Alabama to lose last week. I expected Wisconsin to be kind of right there on the cusp, and if they won out and won the Big Ten title, I figured they would get in. Now it's clear if they win this weekend, they're going to get in. And if they beat Ohio State and win the conference title and they're unbeaten,
number one.
I don't think they'll be number one, especially if Clemson or Auburn wins this weekend or both win this weekend. But I could see them passing Oklahoma because Oklahoma's sort of marquee win right now is winning at Ohio State earlier in the year and then, of course, doing what they've done in the Big 12. If Wisconsin then beats Ohio State this weekend and is unbeaten, I could see them leapfrogging Oklahoma into the 3 spots and you know, possibly higher if either Clemson or Auburn lost. But I think what we heard tonight from the committee is that they feel that Clemson and Auburn are playing the best football of anybody right now in the country, and that's why they're 1-2.
Well, my lady friend went to Wisconsin. You know, I went to Illinois, so I'm calling, you know, on her behalf. But I think that they're just a great group of young men, and they represent the school well. And all the things you would like great about college football athletics, I think they represent.
Yeah, no, there's no question. It's a classy program, and they've done a lot of great things. And, Brian, I do believe if they win, they're obviously safely in and have a chance to move up. This is a huge game for them because no one's believed in their schedule all season long. I mean, the biggest wins are Iowa and Northwestern and Michigan, and all those teams are sort of fringe top 25 teams. This is their chance this weekend, a top 10 showdown at a neutral site. You win this, and I think everybody all of a sudden takes notice of Wisconsin and says, hey, this is a 13-0 Big Ten champion that just beat a top 10 team. Now, all of a sudden, that's validation for everything they've done this year. So a huge opportunity for Paul Christ and company. Let's go to LD. LD, thanks for the call.
Hey, how you doing, guy?
I'm doing well.
All right, let's talk Tennessee football.
You bet.
A fact about UT, those guys are very, very professional. It's improper to see a superpower just go plumb invisible. I say this about the program. Athletically, you cannot talk to those kids anymore, and yelling only goes further and further and further and further on. What happened to a superpower is they stomped their feet too many times, and nobody was there to discuss the importance of putting the right people in place. On their behalf, as an independent, I've even applied for the basketball program, and they accepted as an independent. So I applaud them for opening up and due diligence. But if you don't have somebody in that to make specific program methods and talk into Tennessee or hashtag talk in Tennessee, you're going to stomp your feet, and this program is just going to shake and shake, rattle, and roll. We have to get UT football back on the platform of intelligent sports programming, intelligent sports men, and then watch this program blossom. But they do a lot of overseeing and oversight in Knoxville that causes his program to only be a foot-stomping, yelling organization. I feel sorry for those players, and if they don't land a great coach, T. Martin, characteristically, could bring them back to that road to travel, if you understand where I'm coming from.
I do, and look, there are certainly some people out there who would love to see T. Martin come back because he's kind of the Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, obviously. I mean, he's a guy who had a storied career there. He led the Vols to a national championship back in 1998, and now he's gone out and cut his chops in the coaching ranks. He's the offensive coordinator at USC, understands big-time football. The only problem I see with T. Martin is the fact that he hasn't been a head coach anywhere yet. And it is a big jump. I think we saw it a couple years ago when Derek Mason went from the coordinator role to the head coaching role at Vanderbilt. His first year organizationally was a mess. And he's since cleaned that up and seemed to got the program in solid footing. But that's your risk with a guy like T. Martin. And let's face it, Tennessee fans aren't patient. So an organizationally dysfunctional first year, as you figure it all out, that's not going to go over very well. So that's the risk you run with a guy like T. Martin. The big thing for Tennessee is everybody's got to get on the same page. From the athletic administration through the coaching staff, they've just got to get on the same page at this point because it has been so long since that's the case. We got to take a break here. Back with more of your phone calls right after this. 737-7767 is the number. Again, the breaking news, Mike Gundy staying at Oklahoma State. More right after this.